In the year 1347, something unseen crossed the borders of Europe. It didn't arrive with armies, banners, or warnings. It arrived silently, hidden in the shadows of merchant ships, clinging to ropes, barrels, and the bodies of rats that scurried beneath the decks. No one knew it yet, but humanity was about to face one of the darkest chapters in its history. Imagine waking up in a medieval city. The air smells of smoke, waste, and fear. Church bells ring constantly, not for prayer, but for death. Every morning, carts roll through narrow streets, collecting bodies stacked like firewood, some still warm, some still breathing. This was the Black Death, the bubonic plague. Within just a few years, it would kill an estimated 75 to 200 million people. Nearly half of Europe's population would vanish, families erased, cities emptied, entire villages abandoned to silence. And the most terrifying part? No one understood what was happening. People blamed poisoned air. They blamed comets in the sky. They blamed witches, foreigners, even God himself. But the real enemy was microscopic and unstoppable. The plague was caused by a bacterium known today as Yersinia pestis. It lived inside fleas, which fed on infected rats. When those rats died, the fleas jumped to humans. One bite was enough. At first, the symptoms seemed ordinary: fever, chills, weakness. Then came the swellings. Painful, blackened lumps appeared in the groin, neck, and armpits. These were called buboes, giving the disease its name. Within days, victims began vomiting blood. Their skin darkened as internal bleeding spread. Many died within 48 to 72 hours. Doctors were helpless. Medical knowledge in the 1300s was based on ancient theories. Physicians believed illness was caused by an imbalance of bodily fluids. Treatments included bloodletting, leeches, burning herbs, or carrying flowers to purify the air. None of it worked. Some doctors wore terrifying masks with long beaks, filled with herbs and spices, believing it would protect them from the deadly air. Instead, it became one of the most haunting symbols of the plague. Fear ruled everything. Parents abandoned sick children. Husbands fled from wives. Priests refused to perform last rites. In some cities, the law collapsed entirely. Looting became common. Graves filled so fast that bodies were dumped into mass pits. The living walked among the dead every day. Religion intensified the terror. Many believed the plague was God's punishment. Groups known as flagellants marched from town to town, whipping themselves in public, begging for forgiveness. Others turned violent, accusing minorities, especially Jewish communities, of poisoning wells. Thousands were tortured or murdered based on lies fueled by panic. Trade stopped. Farms were abandoned. Crops rotted in the fields. Ironically, survivors found a changed world. With so many dead, labor became valuable. Peasants demanded higher wages. Feudal systems weakened. The balance of power slowly shifted away from nobles. Death reshaped society. By the time the plague began to fade in the early 1350s, Europe was unrecognizable. Art, religion, medicine, and philosophy were forever changed. Humanity had stared into the abyss and survived. But the plague never truly disappeared. It would return again and again for centuries, reminding the world of how fragile life really is. And the question remains, how did civilization endure something so devastating? That story continues. As the first wave of the plague swept across Europe, survival became a matter of chance. Cities closed their gates too late. Ports quarantined ships only after crews had already died on deck. The disease moved faster than fear, faster than rumors, faster than any attempt to escape it. By 1348, the plague had reached England. London became a city of whispers and screams. Entire households were marked with red crosses. Doors were sealed shut. "Lord, have mercy on us," was written over entrances where sickness lived inside. Once the door closed, it rarely opened again. The rich fled to the countryside. The poor had nowhere to go. Doctors were overwhelmed. Many refused to treat patients. Others died within weeks. Medical schools offered no answers. Knowledge passed down from ancient Rome and Greece collapsed under the weight of reality. People experimented with desperate cures. They drank mercury. They slept with live chickens pressed against their sores. They burned sulfur in their homes. They carried charms made of bone, silver, and prayer. Nothing stopped it. In Florence, the writer Giovanni Boccaccio described how fear erased humanity itself. Friends avoided each other. Neighbors pretended not to hear cries for help. Death became so common that mourning felt pointless. And yet, not everyone reacted with fear. Some surrendered to excess. If tomorrow meant death, then today meant pleasure. Taverns stayed open. Gambling flourished. People ate, drank, and indulged as if the world were ending, because for many, it was. In Paris, bodies piled so high that cemeteries overflowed. Mass graves were dug outside city walls. The soil became black and foul. The smell of death lingered for years. In rural villages, the plague hit differently. Sometimes it arrived suddenly, killing everyone within days. Other times, it skipped entire towns without explanation. One village would vanish completely, while the next remained untouched. This randomness made the terror worse. There was no logic, no pattern people could understand. Entire bloodlines ended. Family names disappeared forever. Children grew up without parents. Orphans wandered from place to place. Some were taken in. Many were not. The church, once the center of stability, began to fracture. Priests died in massive numbers. Survivors were inexperienced, frightened, or corrupt. Faith was tested. Some people became more religious than ever. Others lost belief entirely. Why would a merciful God allow this? Art began to change. Paintings filled with skeletons, demons, and decaying flesh appeared across Europe. The dance of death became a popular theme, depicting kings, peasants, and priests dancing with death itself. The message was clear. No one was safe. Writers focused on mortality, time, fragility, the fleeting nature of life. The plague forced humanity to confront something it had always feared, but never faced on this scale: its own insignificance. By the early 1350s, the plague finally slowed. Not because of medicine, not because of prayer, but because there were fewer people left to infect. Those who survived carried invisible scars. They had seen children die in hours. They had buried entire families. They had lived while others vanished. And the world they inherited was different. Fields lay empty. Houses stood abandoned. Tools rusted where hands once worked daily. Labor shortages changed everything. For the first time, common workers could demand fair wages. Lords could no longer rely on endless manpower. Serfdom weakened. The foundations of medieval society began to crack. Governments tried to stop the change. England passed the Statute of Labourers, forcing workers to accept old wages. It failed. Too many had died. Power had shifted. Survivors knew their worth. The Black Death didn't just kill people. It killed the old order. But the story doesn't end there, because the plague left behind something else: knowledge. Doctors began questioning ancient teachings. Cities experimented with quarantines. Isolation, sanitation, and public health slowly emerged from catastrophe. The seeds of modern medicine were planted in mass graves. And yet, the plague was not finished with humanity. It would return, again and again, changing forms, changing names, changing history every time. What happened next would reshape the future forever. The Black Death never truly disappeared. After its first devastating wave in the 1300s, the plague returned again and again, sometimes every generation, haunting Europe, Asia, and the Middle East for centuries. Each outbreak reopened old wounds, reignited fear, and reminded humanity that the nightmare was not over. But something had changed. People remembered. Cities that had once welcomed ships openly now enforced isolation. The word quarantine was born from this fear. 40 days of waiting, watching, hoping. Ports locked down vessels before sickness could spread. Travelers were inspected. The sick were separated. For the first time, societies began to understand that distance could mean survival. Medical thinking slowly evolved. Doctors started observing patterns instead of repeating ancient theories. They noticed that contact mattered, that cleanliness mattered, that overcrowding fueled death. It was the beginning of a new way of thinking, one built not on superstition, but on evidence. Still, the cost had been unimaginable. Europe had lost nearly half its people. Entire regions were permanently altered. Forests reclaimed farmland. Wolves returned to abandoned villages. Silence filled places once alive with voices. But from the ruins, something unexpected emerged. Opportunity. Survivors inherited land. Workers gained power. Education expanded beyond monasteries. Ideas spread faster than ever before. The rigid medieval world loosened its grip. Some historians believe the Black Death helped pave the way for the Renaissance. Art became more human. Science became more curious. Life became more valuable, because death had proven how quickly it could be taken away. The plague had stripped humanity to its core and forced it to rebuild. Even today, echoes of the Black Death remain. Modern public health systems, disease tracking, quarantine laws, emergency responses, all of them trace their roots back to this catastrophe. And Yersinia pestis still exists. The plague did not vanish. It retreated. It reminds us of a truth that feels uncomfortable but undeniable. Civilization is fragile, progress is not guaranteed, and survival has always depended on knowledge, cooperation, and preparedness. The people of the 1300s didn't have microscopes. They didn't have antibiotics. They didn't understand bacteria or transmission. But they endured. They adapted. They learned. They survived. And because they survived, the world moved forward. History is not just a record of the past. It is a warning and a lesson. If you found this story powerful, disturbing, or eye-opening, make sure you don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe to the channel for more deep, cinematic stories from history. And share this video with your friends, because stories like this deserve to be remembered. Humanity has faced the darkness before, and it will again. The question is, will we be ready?